So do you guys remember back in the 2018 Game Awards when they have these anti-vaping ads from this organization called Truth? This organization surprisingly has quite a lot of reach, and we're gonna be talking about them and smoking in general today. But first, a quick thank you message for those who donated to me through many means. You can do so, links down below, and in particular, Nathan on Patreon. You are fantastic. It all started with a hoopla caused by Gears 5 last week. Now, I talk about this really weird hoopla on stream, so it was a rather rough coverage on this topic, but I do want to talk about this one a little bit more because there's more to it to the story than just, oh, the developers want to censor smoking. That is, if you can call it censorship. Now, I am no fan of smoking myself. I don't like the smell, I don't like the consequences that it did to the body, I don't like the really addictive nature of it. I've had many addictions for other things already, especially the anime titties. I don't want to add another thing into the mix, especially if it can actually kill me. That, and I have seen the consequences of smoking addiction firsthand through many of my family members, so I won't be repeating the same mistakes. But just because I don't like smoking doesn't mean that you're not allowed to smoke. You're perfectly allowed to do so. Just try not to bother people that much. Go ahead and smoke all you want, especially in fiction. Hell, I'd write characters that smoke. So what's the reasoning behind this really bizarre hoopla? Is it for moral reasons? Is it because depiction is a form of endorsement? And if so, why are you singling the act of smoking in general when murder is something that occurs all the time in the game? Let's read on further and see the logic behind this bizarre, censorship. I mentioned Game Awards because the same organization that promoted the anti-vaping ads, Truth, was the one who told Turner's E-League esports division to make the change. But apparently the studio head for the coalition, Rod Ferguson, said that it was his decision. In a statement, Rod said that he has seen the devastating impact of smoking. He said that it's always been important for me to not use smoking as a narrative device, which is why we made the conscious choice to avoid highlighting or glorifying smoking in Gears 5 and throughout the franchise moving forward. So essentially, smoking isn't gonna be a part of any character trait and wouldn't be depicted in any way throughout the series. Now, I did sort of say that technically this isn't censorship, and let me illustrate to you why through this meme. It's not really censorship if you don't want to have it in the first place. And to make you understand this, imagine if you make a sci-fi story and somebody asks, add wizards to it, and you say no because it just doesn't fit with the story. Is that really censorship? Now, imagine that scenario and you say, no, I don't want to add wizards because I think wizards are a bunch of really evil people and I have a personal vendetta against them. That's basically this hoopla. It's a narrative decision being bizarrely justified by moral reasons. This entire hoopla is booming because the developers are being moralistic about it. If you simply say, I just don't want to use this as a narrative device, or it doesn't fit with X character, or it's not important to have for the story, this wouldn't have been a hoopla. But making a narrative decision to be a moral issue seems really bizarre to me, and considering that this entire thing is associated with an organization whose primary interest is anti-smoking agenda, this entire thing just feels not genuine. I think we can all agree that in order for something to be censored, it needs to have an initial state before the censorship occurs. Rod said that there's no smoking at all throughout the game, so how can you censor something that isn't really there and wasn't meant to be there, or at least according to the developer? That's another way to put this meme. The reasoning behind the censorship is there, but the initial state of censorship isn't really there. The water is there, but not the pool, if you get what I'm saying. The bottom line is this: if you don't want to invite stupid hooplas like this, be more pragmatic to your creative decisions. Don't invite unnecessary hoopla by moralizing an issue that is based on nothing but your own creative decision. If you don't want to have smoking in your story, fine, but at least have a reason that makes more sense than, I don't want to endorse this lifestyle. Yes, you don't want to endorse smoking in a fictional universe where you shoot and kill people. A very logical reason. Maybe say that it doesn't fit with some of the characters, or that it's unnecessary, or simply say that I just don't want to have it in there. There are less stupid reasons to use to explain why you don't want to have this particular element in the game. I mean, I don't want to have anime titties in a depressing story like Chernobyl, although I do need it after that binge. But we're not done here, guys. There's actually more to it to this story. I find this topic to be an even more interesting thing to discuss because this can actually lead to actual censorship. You see, Gears 5 isn't the only one that doesn't want to have the depiction of tobacco usage. Also from last week, Netflix is reducing depictions of smoking after complaints from Stranger Things. And guess who initiated the complaint? The Truth Initiative, of course. According to Netflix, they strongly support artistic expression, but they also recognize that smoking is harmful, and when portrayed positively on screen, it can adversely influence young people. According to the Truth Initiative president, a lot of content has become the new tobacco commercial. They're seeing a pervasive reemergence of smoking imagery across screens that is glamorizing and renormalizing a deadly addiction and putting young people squarely in the crosshairs of the tobacco industry. This can also affect even R-rated films. But you know what's the most interesting part? Netflix isn't the first one, and this has happened many years ago. Before Netflix, many Hollywood studios banned most on-screen smoking years ago, and these are also coming from anti-smoking groups. By 2013, all 6 of the major outfits, including Paramount Pictures, Sony, Universal, Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers, had put into place their own policies that mirrored Netflix's recent announcement, and all focus on youth-rated films, as in any films rated under R. Interestingly though, it's just a policy from them. It might be banned on paper, but it's hardly gone at all. Universal and Sony, for example, try to find loopholes in the ruling and only apply it when absolutely necessary. Disney, Paramount, and Fox still have some depictions of cigars, but they're depicted either because they're historically accurate to the character or if they show detrimental effect of it, essentially turning whatever fictional story on their production lineup into a very soft anti-smoking propaganda. Warner Brothers are actually the first one who implemented this all the way back in 2005, but even then they tried to find exceptions into the rule. Now going back to the Gears 5 hoopla, Seth Laditsky, the senior VP of Turner Sports Sales, said that the elimination of smoking doesn't change the nature of the game itself, and that research shows a correlation between higher exposure to tobacco depictions in entertainment and a higher incidence of smoking adoption among younger people. There are no citations on the Variety article, and there's none provided by Laditsky, so I did my own digging, and these findings are actually pretty depressing. Here's a blog dedicated on smoke-free movies from University of California, San Francisco, and they have the evidence to conclude that there is a causal relationship between depictions of smoking in the movies and the initiation of smoking among young people, according to the US Surgeon General report from 2012. According to the fact sheet, youth who are most exposed to images of smoking in movies are twice as likely to begin smoking as those who get the least exposure. Now that particular part is coming from a section in the fact sheet that talks about the reason why youths in general are smoking, and that also includes one more factor, which is that smoking in general makes you look cool and therefore makes you more accepted within your social peers. And while the fact sheet does state that the more exposure to smoking in fiction might lead to actual smoking, at no point was there a call to just straight up ban smoking in fiction as a solution for it. And that's just one of the points. A population survey reveals that teens who have seen a lot of smoking in the movies or whose favorite stars smoke are more likely to be smokers. A longitudinal study from Dartmouth in 2003, which follows up to 2,600 adolescents for 2 years, find out that the more smoking in movies they saw, the more likely they were to start to smoke. Kids who saw the most smoking in movies were nearly 3 times more likely to start smoking than kids who saw the least. And that's not the only longitudinal study that proves this. There are more and more studies on this particular website, and you should definitely take it with a grain of salt, but all of the studies led into the conclusion that exposure to smoking in fiction does in fact make it more likely for people to smoke, especially youths. And this is even after considering many other factors, such as the fact that smoking is seen as a cool thing amongst many peers, which is a huge factor in why people smoke. So with all of that being said, ban smoking in fiction, right? Well, hold on a minute, I'm not done yet. I also found this study that reveals that those with high exposure to smoking in films are 3 times as likely to try smoking or become smokers. Okay, how about this? There's also a study from 2014 that reviewed patterns for over 50 years and found out that even established smokers are influenced to light up by seeing it done on the small screen. But there's also this. Over the 55 years studied, smoking in real life and on TV both decline, and that the declining appearance of tobacco on TV has happened alongside a similar decline in movies. I don't know what to say, really. It seems to me that all the things that I know about fictional elements not affecting reality might change for once. The studies do indeed suggest a strong causal relationship, and these studies have been performed many times for decades. So in order to fight smoking and vaping, banning fictional instances of smoking and vaping might actually work. But even then, that's like saying pouring a bottle of water might actually work to extinguish fire. It might, just not on the same extent as, say, a bucket of water, or a continuous stream of water, or a fire extinguisher. That, or try not to cause the flame at all. I feel like the causal relationship between fiction and reality in the case of smoking is something that happens either way, as in, it's both fiction affecting reality and reality affecting fiction. That being said, the Reuters article did note that using an economic model, it was more likely that the TV was the one who influenced real-life smoking levels rather than the other way around. Regardless, why does fiction in general see the act of smoking as a cool thing? Because people in real life think that it's a cool thing. And why do people in real life think that it's a cool thing? I honestly have no idea. I'm not the cool kid in the block. I'm a gamer and a weeb, for God's sake. But what I do know is that not smoking will not make you to be the cool kid in the block. And that's precisely why I'm not the cool kid in the block, especially in my country, which, by the way, is the most prevalent country to have people age 15 years and older to smoke, with the highest percentage of smokers compared to any country in the world. So how about we consult a more reliable source? Why do people smoke? There are many reasons. For example, peer pressure from their friends, seeing their parents who also smoke, or simply because they're teenagers and they want to rebel against the system. I mean, the system constantly tells people to not smoke, so it's the best way to fight against the system, right? Smoking also helps people relax, and some people who have depression, anxiety, and stress are also more likely to smoke and drink for that matter. Some even smoke because of worries about putting on weight, but that's just a worry in the end. Wait a second, how could this video turn into a PSA about smoking? Well, I didn't intend it to be one, to be honest, and last time I checked, Truth hasn't given me any animation studio full of staff to work with. I initially want to approach this topic in a manner similar to, oh no, those moral guardians are at it again. They're censoring the most minor and insignificant stuff in fiction that doesn't affect reality, and that's not good for free expression. That's basically every video I make, but another thing that I do in my video is research, and unfortunately the research goes against my initial approach. My stance turns from, wow, these moral guardians are at it again, to, okay, maybe these moral guardians have a point. And it's not that this isn't a good cause, but then again, a lot of moral guardians do have good causes. I mean, women's rights and LGBT rights are also good causes being touted by moral guardians who always attack the wrong target. But smoking is so much more of an issue that actually kills people that if I could, I probably would end up being a moral guardian, telling people and encouraging them to not smoke. Hell, I bet a lot of you guys are. Not the moral guardian part, the actively telling people to not smoke part. But even in a backwards country like mine that smokes more than the entire freaking world, me and my siblings are still able to get through the day without smoking, despite having close friends and even relatives who do smoke. I suppose it's all thanks to my mother being very strict and me being at the close proximity of smokers many times in my life, which is less pleasant than taking a fart straight to the face, and also being a loser, a healthy loser, so suck on that. My takeaway from this entire hoopla is that 1. Smoking isn't good for you kids, and 2. There are much better ways to fight smoking, and unfortunately the recent attempts from many of these non-profit anti-smoking organizations are unable to convince the general audience about the dangers of smoking and vaping to the point where people are jokingly, or maybe even seriously, say that they'd rather vape or smoke just to spite them. Putting yourselves on the Game Awards is a really bizarre move that only confuses people rather than convincing them. Asking Gears 5 to just straight up not have smoking at all is technically not censorship because it's not there in the first place, but it can lead to more censorship of smoking in many other fictional stories, as it has been done many times before for decades now. And the worst part is that the censorship could work in quenching all the smoking, or at least in films and TV shows. Unfortunately, in the modern age of the internet, those are not the only things influencing the youth these days. So what do we do? How can we fight the recurring smoking phenomenon without sacrificing artistic freedom? Well, don't. That's the more libertarian side of me speaking. At the end of the day, smoking is a lifestyle choice, and while I don't want certain very important people in my life to adopt this horrendous lifestyle, I am not the one to judge any of you. It's a noble cause to make people to be healthy, but if that's being done at the cost of creative expression, I'd say we need to find better solutions, and there are many other better solutions.